Hi, everybody. I know it says in the program that I'm going to speak about jävla drittsystem, but I've already done that here in Trondheim a couple of times. So I tried a bit of agile philosophy here and inspected and adapted and came up with something else, which I would like to talk about today. This or this. Just a few things here. If you want to tweet this, it's me on Twitter, and that's my company in use. And the hashtag, of course, just a few slides here, what we're doing in the company in Sweden. One of the things that I'm proud of that my colleagues have been working on is this. I have a passion for things that people will use at work, and this is an alarm system for nurses that I think they've been working on. I think it's going to be a really cool thing. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about something else. We're going to talk about the future. We're going to talk about back to the future. You know what the future used to look like? It used to look like this. Or this. The flying cars and the transatlantic subways. This was in the late 60s and the early 70s, when people looked like this. They were happy, big ties. If you haven't noticed, we are now living in the biggest new wave of techno-optimism since the late 60s and early 70s. It's the new trend. But of course now we have something else. Google has self-driving cars. We have 3D writers that promise all kinds of stuff that we can do. We can do amazing things like a cup like this. And eventually, probably we'll also be able to produce body parts from a 3D writer. And of course, we have the promise of artificial intelligence, also very strong. There's one strong metaphor behind all this. There's one strong metaphor behind all this that's happening right now. Sort of driving force behind this, and I'm sure you recognize it. The exponential growth of Moore's law. Capacity of computers double every 18 months or so, like that. This is a very powerful image, and it drives a lot of thought and a lot of optimism and a lot of thinking about the future. But let's get back to the 60s for just a moment. We didn't get the flying cars, did we? But just as an aside, for example, even in the 60s, the exponential curve was a very strong sort of image for moving into the future, as you can see in this, which is the Soviet space monument. They also projected a very bright future going upwards all the time. We didn't quite get that. The Soviets didn't get that. We didn't get our flying cars and jetpacks. That's not really important, is it? We got a lot of wonderful things instead. We got smartphones and everything. I mean, what need would you have of a flying car anyway, or a jetpack? I wouldn't trade my iPhone for a jetpack. No way. But the fact is that the people in the 60s, the optimists, they also promised us something else, not just flying cars and jetpacks. This is a book from 1968 about Sweden in the year 2000. It's written by 24 of the most influential scientists and businessmen, entrepreneurs at the time. They were interviewed for this book, and it's an anthology, and they have all kinds of chapters on different subjects. As I said, not just about flying cars. One of the things they promised us for the year 2000 was this. We would have 3 months of vacation. We would earn about 60,000 Swedish kronor a month, slightly less in Norwegian kronor. and we would have a working day of 4 hours. Actually, those 60,000 crowns, that's in the value of 1968. So with inflation, so that would equal today. Anyone want to guess? And you can see that behind this was the projection of a very strong development. The strong productivity growth in Sweden and in Europe and the whole of the world in the 1960s and 1970s. Productivity grew by like 5-6% as a mean per year, with some countries, including Japan and Sweden, outperforming the others with growth rates, productivity growth rates like 7 or 8%. So this is what we should have expected. But things hasn't really turned out that well in this respect, has it? These are quite recent clippings. This one is from, well, just yesterday, I think. Is economic growth permanently lower? This is from Financial Times. What they can show here is that productivity has been falling. Now, we've been talking about productivity here and productivity for a team, which we can measure on a small scale, but this is productivity for the whole society, and you can see it was very high in the 1960s and the 1970s, relatively stable from 1980 to 2000, and then has dropped sharply from the year 2000. So how do we explain this, or how do economists like Financial Times explain this? Well, a slowdown in technical progress. So how does this make sense? We have a law, we have Moore's law that says that, well, capacity is going up like this, productivity should go up like this too, shouldn't it? And it's not just the Financial Times, this is The Economist, also quite recent, October 4th this year. The digital revolution has yet to fulfill its promise of higher productivity and better jobs. And if you go back and search into the archives of The Economist, you find a number of articles with the same question. Perhaps we shouldn't be that surprised. Throughout history, others have held the same belief. The diagram on top here is from 1999, where it was widely believed that stock value would rise exponentially up here. And of course, that was just like a couple of months before the dot-com crash. And below there is Stalin's projection of steel output from the Soviet Union from the 1930s, which he also projected would rise like this exponentially, more or less. So what is going on here? What we get to see in the real world is seldom an unlimited exponential growth. What we usually see is something more like this. This is a curve that in the beginning looks very much like the exponential growth, but then it flattens, it declines. This is the S-shaped curve. The S-shaped curve flattens, and then eventually it might even drop. This is the curve of what we call the law of diminishing returns. The classical example is that if you put fertilizer into a field, you will get more crop. But as you put even more fertilizer there, it won't make as much, it won't give you as much effect longer, and eventually it will become poison, and it will kill the crop. So you get less crop here. And we can see this phenomenon in quite a number of cases. We give people antibiotics, which proved very good, but when we use too much antibiotics, we get bacteria with resistance, with MRSA, and we have a huge problem when the curve drops off there. We could see it in traffic. We can build highways or motorways, and to some extent, traffic will get faster, but eventually the curve will drop and we will get traffic jams. This is sort of counterintuitive, because we assume that if we only build more roads or wider roads or so, things would get more efficient and travel would get faster. But this is often the case, also quite recent. When we get to that point, that is sort of peak something, peak highways or peak antibiotics or peak fertilizer. So the question is, have we reached some kind of peak IT? Is that the reason that we don't see the upwards effect here? Well, let's try another thought here. Let's look at something that we would like to build. I mean, the constant battle cry of consultants and developers like us is, of course, how hard can it be? How hard can it be to design a payroll system, wages and salaries? I mean, this can't be rocket science, is it? Can it? This should be sort of simple. And this was what I thought too before I started to research in it. This is the Swedish news clipping. They paid the wrong salaries for more than 2 years. These ladies have put in 2,757 hours of overtime during 12 months to correct the wrong salaries paid by the new system introduced here. Single case maybe, and then I looked again in Sweden. So this is from the healthcare, one of the regions of Sweden. Wrong salaries for 1 year. The employees here are actually trying to sue the state for not giving them their salaries for 1 year. And it's turned out that this is not only in Sweden, in Queensland. Queensland tries to sue IBM over the payroll disaster. In California. Not to mention the US Army. I mean, how is this possible? Project after project for something that should be sort of like, it feels like it should be simple, just crashing. And it's not that. Like Obama's healthcare.gov, his signature achievement, you might think they fixed it. The interface is better, but behind the website, there's a lot of trouble. And for good measure, I just threw in a number of Norwegians and Danish things here too. Yes, and I added this one also. Recently, three of the biggest Swedish banks ditched efforts to build new IT platforms with total losses of over 10 billion Swedish crowns. And if you listen to Henrik, he mentioned the new system for the Swedish police, the PUST, which was built twice, first in a very successful version, then in the second version. And the second version, just to give you an example of how bad it was, with the new system, they were they should write, how much time would you say, as taxpayers, as the people who actually pay the wages for the police, how much time would be like okay for them to spend on writing one report on one case of shoplifting? How long should that take? 10 minutes? 5? Yeah. Perhaps it's complicated. Perhaps they need 15 minutes. Perhaps they need 20 minutes. We really don't know. I mean, we could guess, but if we would like to know, we would actually have to go there. As Henrik also said, we must study the users to see what they actually need. With the new system introduced, the second PUST, the mean time to write one report was 2 hours and 52 minutes. It later turned out that this wasn't even the mean, because they had from this number subtracted the 20% longest times reported. There might be some kind of computer glitch that made that reasonable, but anyway, this same system to renew a weapons license had increased from 145 to 313 clicks. So why is this happening? There's one answer to that. One alternative is that everyone who's worked on each of these projects is an idiot. But I actually don't believe that. I think they were quite smart people. Perhaps somewhere there were some not very bright people, but as a rule, this is not very plausible. The second alternative is that the method is wrong, and that lean and agile will save us. And I really do hope that this is the case. This would really be nice here. But there's a third thing here that I want to stress here, and the third alternative is that we're not really understanding the exponentially increasing complexity that we face in today's projects. We're just coming to grips, we're just coming to understand the consequences of this. And it's not very hard. I mean, you know this, every one of you. We have 4 systems, there are the possible connections between them are 6. Just add one system, and of course the number of connections goes up with 4. And add one more system, still just one more, but the number of connection goes up with 5. So we have these 2 lines in the graph. I think that the people who make the decisions, the politicians, the leaders, they who make the decision that we should bring in another IT system here, they understand this line, the flat line. They see, oh, it's only one system, and it's one system more. And actually, you know, as if we were carpenters or something like that, I mean, the first chair we built would be perhaps not as good, and then the second chair would be a little better, and the third would be even better, and the fourth would be very good, and the fifth and sixth and seventh would be perfect. So why is that not happening? Why are we delivering these failures? And I think the answer is that we're not, actually this is not the road we're going up here. And this wasn't a problem when we had like 10 or 5 or 10 or even 15 or 16 systems, or 20 systems, or 25 systems. We checked at this is the Karolinska University Hospital Library. We checked for one day, the 18th of February this year. How many systems did the employees of the library use during one day? There's 110 employees at this hospital, and during that day they used a total of 117 systems, of which these are the top 25. And mind you, when we talk about connectivity, it's not just the IT systems connecting to the IT systems. When the IT systems get more and more integrated into our working life and into our daily life, we get the touch points or the friction points with all the other things. The things that will disrupt our work will be some kind of change in legislation, or the EU passes some law, or there will be media, a public outcry, something, public opinion, or there's a merger of companies that we didn't predict, and everything disrupts or has the potential to disrupt the system. So this is sort of the evil twin of Metcalfe's law. This is the third law here we're covering: Moore's law and the law of diminishing returns, and Metcalfe's law. Metcalfe's law says that the value of a network increases with every added unit. And that's absolutely right, but what we also see is that the vulnerability and the possibility of frictions also grow with the number of units in the network. So I suspect, I don't know if I can prove this, but I think if what we see is not the exponential, very quick, this is extremely quick rise of productivity, or our wages, or the diminishing of our working hours, because if machines get more effective, we should be able to work less. If we see this difference, it might be because of this. There are system effects. Yes, the capacity doubles, but we can't get all that out of it because of system effects. At the beginning of the curve, everything looks like this. It's fine, it's sexy, it's nice. But at the peak, it looks like this. I have to stay with this picture for a second here. I noticed that Henrik also had pictures of motorways or highways. I'm currently in a project with one government agency, and I have this dream, or I have this vision, that I'm in a helicopter hovering over one of the worst intersections of 6 different highways outside Los Angeles or something like that. And we're in the helicopter, and the project manager shouts in my ear, we're going to put one more of those in here. In that agency, there are about 300 or 400 systems that are affected by a change. Okay. So, what about the future? Have we reached peak IT? I'm not sure. I think that if you're the government, we know a lot about government disasters, you might be somewhere there. If you are the big banks that actually cannot replace their infrastructure, at least it seems like that, you might even be down there. If you're a cool startup, you're definitely not there. Now, this is an interesting thing, because this gives you an opportunity for disruption. When services or players get that complicated, they're very vulnerable to a cool startup that has a completely new idea about what a bank should be. So I don't think we're doomed here. There's certainly a lot of things to do. Unfortunately, some things are harder to disrupt, government, or not as interesting. I can't see any Spotify replacements for payroll systems yet. Unfortunately, because they desperately need it, the ladies you saw there. But I think we must be a bit wary here, because the digitalization that we see affords a lot of things. It gives us a lot of possibilities. It affords a lot of good things, better communications, better services of many kinds. But it also can be used by the sort of dark forces. Digitalization actually affords bureaucracy. And that is one of the reasons that I think we see this slowdown here. You'll recognize this quote, I think, from Mark Andreessen: software is eating the world. Software is entering every business and every activity almost. This may make you feel dizzy with power. We will rule the world. But beware, because everything that eats also produces excrement. And software might, if we're on that downward slope, or perhaps we're not there yet, but if we get there, software will not only eat the world, but it will eat itself. So what do we do? What do we get from this? What do you take away from this? We shouldn't build more highways. We need to build smaller things. We need to build other things. I mean, we will have jobs. We should build things like this, the High Line of New York, perhaps, instead of a motorway, metaphorically speaking. We should build the Copenhagen bicycle bridge. Smaller things, and of course, the agile and the lean methodology works excellently for building this kind of stuff. We will have jobs. Perhaps one of the important jobs in coming years will be to actually clean up the excrement, to shut down systems. I have a very senior colleague who actually said, I've been working in this business for 40 years, and I've never shut down a system. I've never retired a system. It's possible that some of you have done that, but it's extremely seldom we do that. And I think that's one of the things we probably will have to do coming up. Doctors used to prescribe antibiotics to patients, and doctors' jobs now are to prevent them from taking antibiotics, except in special cases. Maybe that's some kind of role for us too, to actually see, do we actually need to build all the things that might be proposed for bureaucratic reasons and by others? I think that's one of the interesting questions that we have to put to ourselves during the years coming. And we should give some thought to the whole question of why we don't achieve productivity. That ultimately, of course, is our goal. Our goal is that the machines should work for us and do the work for us. That's why we're here, to improve the world for us. So, 45 seconds left. No. Thank you. That was what I wanted to say to you today.